joining us right now from Tampa, St. Pete area after watching the Tampa Bay Lightning take care of the Montreal Canadiens 5-1 in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. The playoffs are coming to a head in the world of pucks, and a man who has been covering this sport for ESPN forever and a day, and the voice of Monday Night Football, and my good friend Steve Levy, joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Steve?
I absolutely was going to do the St. Pete transition too if you didn't, Rich.
You know what? We're just cut from the same cloth, Steve.
Absolutely.
How you doing? How's it going?
I'm good, man. Everything's good. We were surprised by last night. The blowouts. You get blowouts in the NBA playoffs throughout. So you don't get that in the Stanley Cup play. Even the best against the worst is still a 1-goal game and an empty netter. So 5-1 is really out of character for the sport, for the final, and certainly for the Canadiens. So that was weird to see, man.
I mean, you are in the city of champions, Steve. Let's be honest here. City of champions. Yeah, they're loving it.
They flashed Gronk on the big scoreboard last night. I think it was taped. I don't think he was actually in the building.
Right.
But it was a madhouse here anyway. So imagine if Gronk was here, that would have only added to the madness. So no, they're fired up, man. And in fact, that's so unfair, Rich. Montreal's going to return home either 1-1 in the series or down 2-0, and they're going to have like 3,500 at the Bell Center, and they're going to have 20,000 like naked people on top of each other right outside the building. It's such a bizarre optic in Quebec right now.
No kidding. Yeah, that is not fair. That is not fair. That is an absolute disadvantage. So, is there a general sense that this is the Lightning's to take right now?
I think Tampa Bay is the better club, but I think you could make the argument that Montreal was the lesser of the club in every single round so far.
Right.
People forget. People had Toronto sweeping them in the first round, and Montreal actually went down 3-1 in that series and came back to win. Then they able to sweep the more talented Winnipeg Jets, and they were absolutely not supposed to beat Las Vegas. And didn't even need 7 and beat them in 6. So Montreal's they got the magic right. We've always heard that expression about how a hot goalie can sort of equal the playing surface, and that's a big point of Barry Melrose in the series. Montreal, wherever they have played for the last 12 years or whatever it is, they've always had one advantage, the same advantage going into every game. They have Carey Price, and you don't. But that kind of stops here, because Andre Vasilevsky for Tampa Bay, might be his equal. So that's a really neat matchup. I thought both goalies were pretty good. I don't blame anything on Carey Price last night, but he can't give up 5 goals, and Montreal expect to win.
Right. And so, are you with Melrose? Is he with you, Steve? You got Barry?
Yep. We're down here. Yeah.
What's it like to watch the Montreal Canadiens in a Stanley Cup Final with a guy who had McSorley's stick checked on him back in '93?
Yeah, that's absolutely come up quite a few times. You can imagine. Actually, this is a brutal series for Melrose, right? So the Canadiens in '93, and people forget, Barry and the Kings, they won Game 1 in Montreal. They're winning Game 2 late in regulation. They're about to go up 2-0 and come home back to LA up 2-0 in the series. And there was that minor illegal stick violation thing, and of course the Kings didn't win another game. So that's that side of it. And then he's here in Tampa,
yes,
which, as you know, blew his doors out after a mere 16 games with a winning record behind the bench. I think they're still paying him, whatever. But this has been a difficult series for Barry to be involved in, for sure.
I love Barry Melrose. He's one of my favorite people that I got to work with and see. But the Canadian aspect of it too, because again, we talked about this with our friend, the actor Colin Hanks, yesterday, a diehard Kings fan, where a lot of Kings fans do believe that the Canadian and Jacques Demers, the coach at the time, got some sort of intelligence on McSorley's stick that was untoward to find out and have knowledge, and the Canadian haven't been back to the Cup until now, and the country of Canada hasn't won one since then. I wonder what Melrose thinks of that.
That story is definitely been out there, Rich. I have also heard those whispers. And listen, it was a different game back then, right? You're playing in those old barns, right? The old Montreal Forum. Like, things were just different, right? Security was lax. there was real home ice advantage in some of those buildings. And as you point out, some of that home ice advantage might have been in the middle of the night, right? They're going in and measuring sticks. And I'm sure that happened elsewhere. And the tricky part, though, is to what do you do with that intel, right? It's a gamble, right? You know it. You know it probably before the series starts or, after the first practice. And so when do you use it, right? At what point in the game? Obviously third period, but you got to be, trailing by a goal. Like everything has to be set up at the right time to use that. And it did work to perfection there. Barry has always taken the high road on that, Bud.
Yes.
He has always said, hey, that's on me. I'm the head coach. Those responsible to me. I have heard players say, they only use their illegal sticks in the first two periods. They go to the legal curve in the third period, and that's, some of that responsibility is on the player, the equipment manager, and those types. But, Barry, that was Barry's shot. You think about it, you don't get so many opportunities. Here, Tampa Bay is ready to try to repeat here. But so many talented people played and coached and whatever, don't get the opportunity to even get a sniff at the cup. And, again, that was Barry's best chance. You imagine you win both games in Montreal, going home. You have to like the Kings' chances with Wayne Gretzky in that spot.
Steve Levy here on the Rich Eisen Show. When was your first SportsCenter? Who'd you do it with, Steve? When was that?
Carl Ravitch, August 8th of 93, so that same year, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget Mike McQuaid, who's still one of my many bosses. We have a lot of bosses, as you know, Rich.
Yes.
And he was producing the show, and in those days we did the two-shot hi-hello on the middle camera.
Yep.
And then whoever had the lead, you'd look down and do the traditional TV anchor turn.
Yes.
And do, your 25 seconds, 30-second lead-in, right? So, and Ravi had only been there like 3 months before me, the grizzled veteran, right? So he gives me this nice build-up from New York and Channel 2 and the fan, blah, blah, blah. We want to welcome our newest anchor, Steve Levy. I say, thanks, Carl. I say a sentence, and then, you're supposed to look down and turn. Well, I must have looked down and not turned. So I did my entire 30-second first lead-in on the two-shot.
On the wrong camera.
Yes, and so Ravitch is trying to be, comforting and a good partner. He's looking at me. He's looking at the camera. McQuaid is in my ear. Hey, Steve, camera 3, trying to be gentle.
Yeah,
I'm definitely nervous, man. It's my first show.
Yeah.
Camera 3, look left, nothing. And I was, Rich, there was nothing going to get me off that camera, that two-shot, and until they rolled that video. And we were off and running. But
When was the last time have you seen that footage? I mean, does it exist somewhere, Steve?
I'm sure it exists somewhere in the basement in Bristol, but I have not seen it. I see the bulging disc a lot. Nobody brings out the first show is not as popular as the bulging disc. Always a good go-to. When I speak at benefits, Rich.
Yes.
That's my own. I'm not funny, as you know.
No,
so
you
are,
Steve. Steve, don't say that.
And so
no.
That's always my go-to to try to break the ice with a crowd.
Well, and of all the people to have had the back problem, and you leave out the S in bulging disc, Randy Johnson, of all people as well, the big unit, right? Is that who had the bulging disc too, Steve? It was not.
Not for me. He might still have a bulging disc, but it was.
Who was it? Who had the bulging disc?
Maurice Hurst of the Patriots. Maurice Hurst Jr.'s dad. Yeah, it was Maurice Hurst of the New England Patriots. I even tell you this story. This is a good story. So I'm doing a Michigan game, right?
Yes.
Greasy.
Yeah.
And Maurice Hurst Jr. is playing, right? He's a good player and stuff.
Yes.
We're on ABC, and I told the producer, hey, we get to a blowout. It could be fun to roll in and all that stuff. So we wind up rolling it in, and Maurice Hurst Jr. tweets me after the game and said something along the lines of, hey, Steve, I never knew that about my father. So how about and leaves it flat there. So, that was my Maurice Hurst.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I think that was one of the stories from Real SportsCenter that made it into that show, the Aaron Sorkin show, Sports Night, right? I think that did, right? Like where, but they basically said that's on the prompter. It was Josh Charles basically said, I'm not reading it. I forget what it was, but it made Sports Night. That made Sports Night back in the day.
Absolutely did. And listen, this was totally on me. It was spelled correctly in the prompter. I just misspoke. It was one letter, Rich. One little letter.
Hey,
make a big deal about
I just told the story just yesterday on yesterday's show that my son is at summer camp right now. My two boys are in the same summer camp. My youngest son did the sports report on the PA system. I heard that story, and I did it in once upon a time in my camp too. I did the sports report on the PA, but I got basically fired from the job after doing it once because when I was reading the box score of the Philadelphia Phillies back in 1980 or 81, I left the letter M out of Mike Schmidt's last name by accident, and they thought I did that on purpose, and I was one and done. So I had my, hey man, I know how it feels basically, but I was also in Trails End Camp at the time, not on SportsCenter.
Not sitting next to Olbermann.
That's right. And Olbermann, unfortunately for you, it wasn't a read into, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't a read into a highlight. It was just a straight sport, like a straight news read, and you're supposed to throw it to Keith next. And Keith was next, and he had his glasses off and waved the camera back to you, right? Because he was laughing? Is that what he?
Yes, very close. And Olbermann has the line, so I say what I said, and Olbermann says, Steve, do we have any video of that? So now, the camera starts shaking, right, because everybody's laughing. And the other kicker to that story is, and again, you know what? It's Mike McQuaid again. So he's producing that night. And the next story, this is amazing, is about an Asian figure skater who had passed away. Okay, so can you imagine? Now we've totally lost control of the show.
Right.
And in television terms, when you're not going to do a story, it's kill the story.
That's
right?
Kill the story, right?
So that's right. So Quaid says, "All right, kill the Asian figure skater." She's already dead, and now in our ears. So we've totally lost it now, and so I'm going through a rip of NFL like season-ending, career-ending injuries, and trying not to lose it. And Keith absolutely is crying, and the only reason I was there is because Dan took the night off. Dan had, I don't know, his daughter was graduating or something like that.
Oh gosh!
So I was filling in for Dan. It was coming out of Monday Night Football. Like it was the worst possible spot, and I really thought I was going to get fired the next day, Rich. I really did.
Oh God! Look at the hair. We've got a screen grab of you, Steve. We got a screen grab of you from that. There's Hurst with the over the shoulder of Maurice Hurst Sr. right there. You don't have that tie anymore. That's for sure. I don't think you have that tie anymore. Look at you.
Too thin.
No. It's got a hell of a pattern. I mean, my gosh, that's.
How about me, myself? Was I too thin? Or too thin?
Steve, you look great. I'm not going to lie. Oh, okay. You look great.
Hair's tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that is a head of lettuce. I had one too, but well, look, have a great time with the Cup. Let's do this again in the summer as you're getting ready to call Monday Night Football. We'll talk some ball with you. I'd love it.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Thanks for having us on.
No, absolutely. So you're on tonight, right? You're doing a SportsCenter hit?
Yep.
You're doing all that?
Some SportsCenter stuff. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'll see you then, Steve. Thanks. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.